In this episode of Kids Podcast, I am honored to share wisdom with you about leading kids in your church and in your home. Dealing with kids is hard work, and I'm praying that we add some tools to your tool belt today. So let's dive into today's topic. In this episode of Kids Podcast, we are talking about hard work. That's right, we are in a 3-part series. Last week we talked about hard truths. This week we're talking about hard work, and next week we're talking about smart work. This series is titled Working Behind the Desk When Working with Kids Ministry, because hey, you might be a coach, you might be a parent, you might be a pastor, and all of us, hey, we are rock stars behind the microphone. We are great at making kids laugh. We are great at working with kids. We are great at talking to kids. We are great at playing with young people. But being administrative, organizing stuff and things and coordination and yeah, that's hard. So how to up my game? Because some of you are struggling with this. I've struggled with this, but I've gotten better. And now I give you my wisdom or knowledge or 2 cents or whatever you will accept in order to up your game from behind the desk. I'm Ron Gale. I'm your podcast host for today, and we are focusing on this idea of hard work. If you missed last week's episode on hard truths, those are kind of a prerequisite to the mental mindset of what it takes to work from behind the desk. So let's dive in today with hard work. It kind of starts with a few things we need to learn about before I dig into the nitty-gritty. So let's start with this. When I plan my week, I work on a 5-hour day, not an 8-hour day. Let me repeat that. At the church, when I was full-time, I operated on a 5-hour day, not an 8-hour day. You might be asking, why a 5-hour day? Well, this is a very, very simple answer. It's because when you work in a church, you don't have stinking 8 hours of work to do. You know why? Because your secretary wants to bother you, because some phone call came in and they want to do something with you, because you jokers on the podcast world and Facebook world want to ask me a million questions about things, and I'm given a good hour and a half of my time ministering to people rather than doing quote-unquote work. And that's important. I love doing ministry. I love shepherding. I love giving an investment towards people. I'm all about people more than projects, which means I need to plan for people into my projects. And a part of that planning is, I don't have 8 hours in my day. I have 5 hours to get my work done. And don't forget, depending on where you're at, you might have a 30-minute lunch or an hour-long lunch. But if you know how to layer things, hey, you could capitalize. That's a different episode for a different time. So there's the first point is I operate on a 4-hour workday. And then I use something called an event planning sheet. It's not something you can Google and just obtain from anywhere. It's something I created out of thin air. It's basically a matrix. A matrix on how to plan something. It's batched in certain numbers. And it helps me to plan out certain activities and events based on its capacity or its scale. And then the third element you should be aware of is I have a prompt query. Yep. So for every event planning sheet, I have a prompting query. It's on month 1, I will be prompted to complete batch 1. On month 2, I'll be prompted to complete batch 2, and on month 3, I'll be prompted to complete, guess what? Batch 3. So those are some details you might want to be aware of, and if you have questions about that, hit me up. We'll talk about it. I'll point you in the right direction. But here is how I go about working hard, and I fit it into maybe 2 categories. because a lot of the other categories can kind of fit in here somewhere. The two categories are 1, my calendar, and 2, my recruitment ability. Because most of us who get in trouble from behind the desk is because 1, we fail at understanding our calendar, and 2, we fail at leading our people, which may or may not even be there. So let's walk through each. First is the calendar of the week. What does my calendar of the week look like? My calendar of my week is both personal and professional. Each Monday, I sit down and I review my entire calendar of my week. And then I will not only meet with my spouse when it's our spouse meeting time, I will text her. Monday is this is going on, Tuesday this is going on, Wednesday this is going on, and so forth. This is not a babe, I need you to know my calendar kind of situation. This is more of a babe, you can kind of ignore this, but this is for me to kind of over-reiterate that I know my own calendar. But just in case you ask, I also sent this to you, so you can't say you didn't know. But yeah, every Monday I review my calendar of both my personal items and my professional items. And the way my calendar is set up is not, for example, Monday is graphic design day, Tuesday is book day, Wednesday is sermon prep day, and Thursday is project prep day. That's not how I do it. Instead, I batch out each day. Let me rephrase that. I batch out each day. So in my entire week, I might have 10 items to do. I might have 20 items to do. It doesn't matter. I'm going to divide all my items by 4 because I have 4 work days and then 1 Sunday. So now I have 4 batches of items. Now each item I'm going to have to review because some items I can do in 5 minutes, other items take me 1 hour, and every now and then I get an item that takes me an hour and a half. And remember, that list in that day is then divided again by 5 hours. So I try to make my daily list based on, can I complete this in 5 hours? Now, if I happen to get through the 5th hour and I find that, I have 3 extra hours that no one has stolen from me, then hey, I'm going to do more, get her done. Because what can happen next? If I finish my 4-day work week in 2 days, man, I can do so much more on my free 2 days. One of those things could be fishing. Another could be just simply working on a project that is in my bucket list. But I'm sure you're following by now that I've had a big list. I divide them into my 4-day work week, and I fit it in. Now, some of those items are reoccurring that are going to happen every Monday. Like every Monday, I review my calendar. Every Tuesday, I go through, follow up with what happened on Sunday. Every Wednesday, I do newsletters. Those are reoccurring. They're going to happen every time, no matter what. Then I start plugging in my list of things to do. That's how I do that. So that's my week calendar planning. But now how do I do my year calendar planning? Whew. All right, let's just say that I'm planning my entire year. By October, I need to have the entire next year in my calendar. This isn't really too hard. In fact, I have a whole video on YouTube on how to do this. You can actually watch it within like an hour and I think 10 minutes of me doing this. It's just this whole thing. But once you get in the groove of doing it after a year or two, it's just changing some dates. But let's say you have your whole year. Now each item gets its own event planning sheet. The All-Nighter gets its own event planning sheet. The VBS gets its own event planning sheet. The Halloween Alternative gets its own event planning sheet. Christmas, you name it. Every event gets its own event planning sheet. If the event is large, it gets a large timeline. If it's small, it gets a medium timeline. And if it's small, it gets a small timeline. Each of those timelines are divided by 3 because I'm batching out that event into 3 parts. It's the prep part, the get her done part, and the last stretch part. It's literally what's going on. I don't do everything all at once, and I don't do everything too early. I batch everything out because, hey, sometimes that one camp is going to cross over with that other retreat, which is going to cross over with that one department that I oversee but don't have anything to do with, but I still have things to do. So I have to, be prepared on all those batches. But each event gets its own event planning sheet. And they all have their own prompts and so forth. It's pretty intuitive. Once again, watch the YouTube video. It'll probably help if you're having questions. And hey, feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to dive in more on what this looks like. Now, this means nothing really to you right now, other than in my week from our previous segment about planning my calendar week. One of the reoccurring items is to revisit or to review my event planning sheets. What do? Well, I go to my folder or my binder, an actual binder that has all these sheets. And I just open it up and I review what needs done, what is next, and I add a few of those items to my calendar of this week. And that's how I accomplish things that are happening through the year. Are you following? Very simple, very sweet. Okay, now we move forward because now I've talked about my calendar of the week, my calendar of the year, and through that process, I'm remembering something that's super duper important, and that's casting vision. All right, because remember, this segment today, this episode is all about hard work. It's hard work to calendar plan. It's hard work to keep it organized and to keep it moving forward and to keep it running on all gears and to keep your boss happy and keep everyone happy. And hey, you follow, right? That's why you're listening to this episode. It's hard work. So then, where does vision casting come in? Because if you don't cast vision, they say it's like a vacuum. Eventually it gets sucked out. It goes somewhere no one knows. You have to cast a vision all the time. And remember, vision is visual. You have to paint a picture all the time. You have to draw an example all the time. You have to give people something to see all the time. So this is why I bring it up. Every meeting, every event, every activity, every event planning sheet, I bring up the topic of vision casting. This exists because of ABC. And when this happens, we get to see kids come to Jesus at the altar, and you get to see it happen. And it is powerful. It is good. And they're talking to Jesus, and they're crying at the altar, and they're asking them about their calling. And are you visualizing based on the words I'm using? I bring up the vision of our ministry or our organization every time, all the time, over and over and over, again and again and again. I bring it up because I don't want the vision to be sucked out to go nowhere. I want the vision to be brought up so often that they are able to recall it without me. One of my favorite things about coaching soccer is saying things like, that's hockey sticks. And sooner or later, the athletes will have a situation happen, and you'll hear them say it to each other and be, bro, that's hockey sticks. That means they've caught the vision. They've caught on what I'm talking about. They've caught on to the lesson. They know. They own. Now they lead. And that's kind of what you're doing. You're just saying it over and over so that they know it, that they begin to own it, and then now they're leading it with the other leaders, especially if you're doing this next part. The next part is recruitment. This is the next hardest part of working from behind the desk. Recruitment. A lot of times I'm watching you guys on Facebook. I'm watching you guys from meetings I go to, the network I go to, and we're struggling with numbers, Pastor Juan. It's really hard for me to understand this. And without sounding pompous, let me explain why this is hard. And I don't know how to make it sound pompous. I don't know how to wrap my mind around the lack of student leaders or adult leaders or recruiting people, because that's not a problem I have. I have too many leaders. I have leaders who've been around for years. I have leaders that have been around so long that they deserve a sabbatical if they were on full-time staff. I have leaders who've been promoted, and they now hold a job that I once had. And so when I hear other leaders who are full-time in ministry talk about their lack of help, I'm really scratching my head. I really don't fully understand. And some of that is because I'm not in your world, I'm not in your community, I'm not in your culture, and I may need to see something, or you might have to re-explain it in a way that is honest. But let's talk a little bit about what I think. Now, I'm not going to go too deep because I have a whole podcast, a 4-part series on recruiting leaders. But just for the sake of this episode and understanding that this is hard work, what I mean is this is a reoccurring task that you have to do every season of the year. There is a magic number you have to get every season. Remember, there's 4 seasons in 1 year? Well, all 4 seasons, I aim for that magic number that you can learn more about in the other episode. Just go in the archive, scroll down, boom, it's there. Magic number. And I recruit, and I do not hope. I'm going to repeat that. I recruit, and I do not hope. I don't hope I have the right numbers. I don't hope they show up. I just recruit and recruit. My goal is that I have to call one of them and be like, hey, do you need a break this week? Because we have too many leaders. I'd rather do that and be like, I hope no one quits at me today. I hope there's no perfect storm. So there you have it. Hard work from behind the desk. These are the elements you need. I think the calendar and working with your recruitment team of volunteers is one of the hardest working elements of what we do in full-time ministry or full-time work with kids. You already now understand what it means to have hard truths. Now, this is the hard work of being organized with your calendar and organized with your team. Now, there is a lot more of being successful behind the desk. But I can't fit that all into one episode. These are the top two. Your calendar and recruiting your volunteer team. So if you've got questions, find me. We will figure it out together. I will try my best to understand what you're talking about. Regardless, everybody, until next time, everybody say, bye, Pastor Juan. Thank you for listening. Smash those like buttons, turn the bells blue, or whatever the kids are doing these days. At the end of the day, our goal is to raise little people to one day become big people. You can find older archived podcasts on our YouTube channel and support what we do at rongaleministries.com. Enjoy!